Hi, Tony DeWitt, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to answer questions here on YouTube. Today we're going to discuss something that many people have questions about, which are contingency fee agreements. So let's say that you're driving along and you have a little crash, and it turns out not to be so little. You wind up having to go to the hospital in an ambulance and have surgery, and by the time you're finished, the medical bills and doctor bills and other costs have risen to $120,000. It's a lot of money, and it would oftentimes be impossible for many people to pay that. Now, sometimes people have health insurance and that helps, but the bottom line is, if you were not responsible for the wreck, then somebody else is responsible for paying your medical bills. So that's why you go out and hire an attorney to take care of that issue. Now, the law says that a contingent fee agreement must be in writing, and it must state the percentage of the fee and how that fee is calculated. And that is never appropriate to be omitted. You must have a written agreement. And if you don't have a written agreement, it's a sign that somebody overlooked something in the case management process. The contingent fee agreement usually assigns a percentage value of the recovery. I've seen percentage fee agreements as low as 25% and as high as 50%. In the firm where I work, our normal standard contingent fee is 40%. A lot of times people complain that that seems like an awful lot of money, but you have to realize that the lawyer is financing this case. He is putting all of his money to work for you, sometimes for as long as 2 to 3 years, in order to get a recovery. And he expects to be paid a reasonable rate for what he charges. Now, any fee, whether it's an hourly fee or a contingent fee, has to be reasonable. And so many times if a lawyer is hired and the insurance company immediately comes back and offers a settlement, lawyers will reduce their fee to make it a reasonable fee. But for the most part, most litigation takes at least 1 year and usually 2, and over that course of time, the attorney will work hundreds of hours on your case. And if you paid an hourly fee, in most cases, it would be greater than your contingent fee. So the written contingent fee has to state what the basis for the fee is. Let's say in this case, 40%. So you go to court and either you get a settlement or you get a judgment for $120,000. So 40% of $120,000 is $48,000. That's the amount of money that the lawyer takes as his fee. But that's not the only thing that's going to come out of the amount of money that you get. In addition to an attorney's fee, it requires money to finance the case. It requires money to pay for the medical bills, to pay for copying, to pay for long-distance phone calls. If you have a medical negligence case, for example, there will be medical experts that have to be retained and paid. All of these things go into the cost of the case, the expenses of the case. In addition to the court costs, there will be costs for depositions. Depositions oftentimes can cost $500 for a half-a-day deposition. And many times now, those depositions are being recorded over Zoom, so in addition to paying a court reporter for the privilege of taking down every word that's said, a videographer is also going to stick his hand out at the end of it and ask to be paid. So all of those things contribute to the costs, and then the costs have to be reimbursed after the fee. And that's because under the law, the person who is responsible for the court costs is the plaintiff. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work out a deal with the attorney where he will agree to pay the court costs, but it will probably mean a higher fee. And again, if you are fortunate enough to have a settlement early in the case, a lot of times the court fees and the expenses are not that high. So that is the story of how contingent fees work. There's nothing really spectacular about them. They work because they make it possible for people who could not pay an attorney an hourly fee up front to recover their costs and things that they were actually out of pocket during the course of an accident that they were not at fault. Another thing about contingent fees. You only pay a contingent fee if you win. But the other side of that coin is that you may have to pay expenses even if you don't win. That is something you need to talk with your attorney about, whether or not he will agree not to charge you for expenses if for any reason you lose. If the other side wins, in many cases they will file what's called a bill of costs with the court, which includes their costs for taking depositions and defending the case. Now, you won't pay their legal fees, but you could be asked to pay their court costs, and those costs could be anywhere from $100 to $5,000, depending on how long the case went on and how many depositions were taken. So that is a responsibility that you have that ultimately rests on your shoulders as the plaintiff. Now, several years ago, I tried a nursing home case, and I thought we did an absolutely fabulous job of proving our case, but the jury didn't agree. And as a result of that, the jury awarded judgment to the defendant in that case. And a bill of costs was put in, and essentially they came to us and said, if you don't appeal, then we will waive the costs. And that's what we did. We did not appeal, and they didn't come after us for the costs. When I say us, I mean the client. So that's another option that can sometimes be useful. Now, just because somebody asks you not to appeal doesn't mean that you don't necessarily want to appeal. Many times it's a good idea to appeal, particularly if your lawyer thinks that the trial court made errors in the trial, or admitted evidence that he shouldn't have admitted, or kept out evidence that he shouldn't have kept out. So listen to your lawyer in that regard. So I hope I've made contingent fees a little bit more understandable. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I read all my comments. Otherwise, I would hope that you would smash that like button and click on the subscribe icon over there on the right side of the screen, and select the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I post a video on this channel. Once again, thank you for watching, and have a terrific day.